we're in this day and age now where everybody's like, you shoot a buck and the first thing he asks is, did you shoot that on public? What does it matter? Who freaking cares what piece of land it was on? The deer didn't know that there was a posted sign there. It's a piece of land and you're shooting a deer. People want to badmouth hunting on private land, but there's something to be said about having the privilege to hunt private and have interactions with deer that you get to learn from them. Because no matter the quarry you're after, like, you need to have reps. And I got to hunt good pieces of private land and screw up a lot to learn what to do and what not to do when I go other places. And it's allowed me to be more successful.
Hey, hunting family, what's going on? We are back with another episode of Tracks and Tackle, and tonight we should have a good one for you. Tonight joining us is Mitchell Shirk. We got him on the show. He's the host of the Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast. And Mitchell, we appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us tonight.
Key word there, should be a good one.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Let me play with the layout here a little bit and get us out here. So I got Mitchell with us, man. Appreciate you hanging out. You got a great podcast of your own, and wanted to been talking with you offline a little bit here. Like I was saying, probably been chatting for a month or so, and finally we were able to lock it in and get you in here on the show tonight. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm here, dude. Surviving the winter freeze where I'm at and pushing through. Ron and I got to hang out the other night. We went to Best Pro Shop.
Yeah, heck yeah. It's like we hang out online all the time, but whenever we can get together in person and get some FaceTime with one another, you can't beat it.
Yeah. I bought a fly fishing rod, so you guys can blame me for that's why it's been so cold.
What in the world do you think about fly fishing with this weather?
So I had a fly fishing rod for a long time, and I never used it. I've told the story a couple of times. I had a private piece of a farm I could fish on. I had a big lake on it, on this guy's farm. Do whatever you want. Just, how things change, whatever. Don't have it anymore. So I bought a fly rod to go out there. Never used it. I just, like 3 or 4 months ago, gave it to my brother-in-law who was looking for a fly rod. And now all I've been watching on TV and YouTube is guys fly fishing. So I was like, I want another one. So
that'll teach you.
I went to Bass Pro and got one.
When I was a kid, I fished like, any other kid that liked the outdoors, right? But time goes on, I don't do it as much. And this past year when they had that cicada hatch in Pennsylvania, my buddy was after me. He's like, man, you got to come with us. This cicada fishing is crazy. So he took me fly fishing. I haven't picked up a fly rod in 15 years. And that was one moment I wish somebody was following me with a video camera. You could have had the best comedy clip on YouTube or a reel, because I fought saying so many 4-letter words when I was trying to cast that thing, and I didn't catch a stinking fish the whole time, but that was just the way it goes.
It was good comic relief, though, for you and your buddy's got a story to tell.
For somebody, it was comic relief.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, let's get into it here tonight. Like I said, appreciate you coming on, hanging out with us. Why don't you just take a minute, Mitchell, and introduce yourself to the audience, for those that might be listening or watching who are not familiar with the Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast.
Well, I'll try to make it brief. It's an interesting story how it got started. A good friend of mine, he's the owner operator of Little Mountain Outfitters in Richland, Pennsylvania. Really cool archery shop. And we were shooting the one day. He has a winter league. We were shooting the one day, and he says, what do you think about auditioning for a podcast? And I looked at him kind of cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? At that point in my life, I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have any of that. I was just kind of going, my own way. And he's like, well, explain this whole podcast network audition for state show. I think we should audition. So we did. And it was kind of a joke to me, but I wanted to do it with my buddy. And then they picked us. So then it got real very quickly, and we went a couple months doing it together, kind of every other month, or every other week rather. And at one point he's like, well, this is way more involved than I thought. My business is growing. I got too much on my plate. I can't do this. I got to back out. So here I am. This just falls into my lap. Had zero interest in doing it at first. Thought, well, let's just see what happens. And somehow, some way I've continued doing it. It's been fun. I've met a lot of cool people, a lot of good relationships. I've been able to have so many different guests. I got to interview some really cool people, some people I never would have met otherwise if it wasn't for the podcast. Got to be on other shows. I got to be on, this is a new one for me, and get to meet new people. That's my favorite part, is just talking.
That's the best part, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's something about conversing over what you enjoy hunting wise in the outdoors. It's just fun. So thanks for including me, guys. This is a great opportunity.
For sure.
Yeah, one of the words we toss it around a lot is camaraderie, but it's that we try to create an online community, and anybody's invited, and everybody has a seat at the table of that. But if you're an outdoors guy, you know what it's like to hang at camp or go to that fishing hole or whatever it is that you like to go out and do. Like you said, you just wanted to do it because you had a friend that wanted to do something, and that's where we get the stories. That's where we make the memories and that sort of thing. And so we try to, our goal, or I guess our aim is, we say nature's our playground. We're going out, we're all grown boys at the end of the day. And, we want to have fun, and we want to make stories so that we have something to remember and talk about.
It's a funny way of thinking, because I went to school for art, and the more I try to make something, it never turns out. But if you're on the phone, or if you're sitting here like you guys are talking and I'm just doodling, the craziest stuff will come out of it. So that's how life works a lot of times. The less you try, the more it is. And you try to recreate conversations like this, it doesn't work out. But this natural stuff, where we're just laughing and talking, that's where it's at.
So you're talking about an online community and having that camaraderie and network. I didn't realize how hungry some people are for that kind of thing. So I'm fortunate. I grew up with family that hunted on both sides, and, extended family and lots of friends, multiple cabins. Some of them I still hunt at to this day. Like that whole group camaraderie, hunting, family fellowship. It surrounded me all the time. And I didn't realize, I guess that's just me living in my own little bubble here. There's so many people that are hungry for that, and it can be in the form of like a podcast like you have set up on your network here. I'm amazed like how people use Facebook pages and things like that, like hungry for that, and it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, we have, and we talk about it all the time. We'll pitch it again. I don't know if Ron talked about it with you before I jumped on. We run a thing outside here called the Collaborative, and it's not online, but it's just how we talk to each other, and it's content creators all over the state, New York, where they all at. It's all over the country really now. We got guys in California and
as we meet people, you build friendships. One of the things that you said, Mitchell, is when you do this long enough, you meet some pretty cool people, and you do your best to try to stay in touch. But the only way to do that is you have to be intentional, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
because we're all busy. And we all have lives and stuff. So the people that are hungry, like you're saying, that want that community, it's evident. And so when you're brought up, like sounds like you were, I was, I still fish with my family and hunt with my family. And when you're in that bubble, you don't realize, some people just don't have that, or haven't had those experiences. And man, I want to share those experiences with people. I want other people to taste what I've tasted, and be able to experience that. And,
yeah,
we're
sending. Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man. I'm just saying, like, everybody's story is unique to them. And so, Chris's, his journey is different than mine. It's different than yours.
For sure. We're sending pictures back and forth to guys from Arkansas and guys from New York State, and everybody's getting pumped up for first day deer, and kids getting deer, and one day we were making fun of me, and the next day they're all making fun of Ron, just riding each other like camp, and it's just like it's the coolest thing. But Mitchell, let's you said it, so let's jump on that horse. Talk about where you grew up, what part of PA you're from, and then what got you into hunting and stuff, man. What got you hooked as a kid?
Yeah, grew up in southeast Pennsylvania, not too far from Cabela's in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. And I mean, as far as my introduction, I mean, I think I came out of the womb hungry for hunting. I mean, this is going to sound like I'm bragging. I'm really not. This is just how it was described to me. When I was a kid, they took me turkey hunting when I was 4, and they told me they never saw a 4-year-old sit still and be quiet like that, and I was just that into it. So, like, I just from a
You were
little
tuned
kid,
in.
I was just I loved it and I ate it. I mean, the stories of that, but I mean, just I was super, super blessed to have the opportunity that I had. I mean, that I was born into. I mean, I had places, outside. I mean, I hunted public land my whole life. And I had multiple cabins that I go to for different seasons of time. And then I also had some private land that I could hunt. It was family and could treat like my own. And it was just this never ending sea of outdoors. And I grew up deer hunting, fell in love with deer hunting, deer, turkey, and bear hunting. I've done them since I'm 12 years old, and even before that in some cases when I'd just be tagging along and driving my dad and my grandfather, my uncles nuts. And I've continued. I mean, bow hunting, whitetails has probably been my biggest passion. It's still near and dear to me. I've kind of switched and I enjoy doing other things. I mean, I've really gotten into bear hunting more. Like I said, I've done it my whole life, but I've prioritized it more. I fell back in love with turkey hunting again. I mean, I just enjoy the big game that we have here in the Northeast.
Yeah, and you got a little bit of everything, in the area where you're at. That's the awesome thing about Pennsylvania is there's so much natural resources that are available to us. So we had a guy on one time and he said, "Look, if you got property that holds big bucks, you're gonna love hunting big bucks." And if you got a property that's got, bass, you're gonna love to fish for bass. Or if you got property that's got turkey, like you're gonna be a turkey hunter. And so that's the beautiful thing about this state is it holds, just about everything. And you can get to it with even if it's not in your backyard, you can get to it pretty quickly with short drive, something like that.
Yeah, we just had a young kid on, Chase. He's from a hunting group called the Yackers, and we actually went goose hunting with him. And he was telling a story. Where's he live? Bloomsburg, Ron.
Yep, he's in Bloomsburg.
So up there, and he was telling us, one day he was deer hunting, and a nice buck came out. I forget how big it was, but a really nice buck for a farm came out. He shot this buck, calls his grandfather. His grandfather bumps a doe. He takes his doe, and while they're sitting there getting that doe, here comes a bear. So within 45 minutes, he's gotten all 3 of these things, and it's just like what you said. It's just such a rich environment for that stuff. It's cool, and people, even like where I'm from, that you don't have those kind of opportunities in one day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Pennsylvania is so cool for that.
So you said you hunt public, or you also said you got some family, like mom's side, dad's side, both sides of the family are into it. So I imagine you got some honey holes where you can go hunt too, right? Do you prefer public or private, or because the approach is a little bit different depending on what you have available to you?
Yeah, I mean, the approach is a little bit different. I'm trying to think about that. I mean, in some cases, I think it is, and in other cases, it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Preference, I don't have a preference. I mean, I grew up. What really like sunk its teeth into me, or the claws, or whatever, is the allure of manipulating property. Like I have this fascination with food plots, habitat. I love native habitat. I'm a little bit of a plant nerd. I mean, I'm a row crop agronomist by trade.
Mm-hmm.
So growing food plots is pretty natural to me. I've been doing food plots a long time. So I've always enjoyed that connection with wildlife. So naturally that goes into private land best. And then there's a whole, hunting strategy that goes into that. And I've done that my whole life. I've been lucky in many regards. The last probably 5 years I've hunted more just different areas. Like I had a piece that was permission, but almost anybody could hunt, and I did successful things there. I did, the last 2 seasons, I shot buck with a rifle in public land. One was a close to home place I never went before, but I took a day off of work, went with a buddy this year. I shot a buck the last day of the rifle season, and it was on a piece of public land I've hunted my entire life, but I never deer hunted. I only bear hunted and turkey hunted a little bit in north central Pennsylvania. So I spent some time with buddies. So I hopscotch all over the place, right? I just go for places, experiences, what is my time anymore? It's what does my time allow? My
Sure.
hunting has shifted. I used to hunt places close to home, and I would try to say, how can I squeak in a hunt, as many hunts throughout the week, and what's the wind going to be, where do I have stands that I can slip into for this wind on this evening, and had freedom. Now I have a wife and kids and a job that's more demanding and this and that. I honestly can't get into hunting that way anymore. I want to say I'm going to camp, I'm going to wherever, and I don't have cell service, or I act like I don't have cell service, and I
Carving
just
out
want to
time
go
to
hunting.
make it happen, right?
So yeah, hunting has changed a lot for me over time. So do I have a preference? Honestly, if I had to make the perfect scene, I'd be hunting a piece of land that, I kind of have a little bit of selfishness to, right? And you can do whatever you want, make some food plots and have blinds. I love that. It's fun. But anymore, truthfully, what I'd rather do is I'd rather go hunt with fun people and friends and family, and the setting, I don't care, wherever.
You're talking
Now you're
Chris's
talking.
language now.
Now you're talking.
One of the things I was thinking about when you were sharing that your response, Mitchell, is the art of being able to read the land. Like, to be an outdoorsman. What does that entail? But being able to go out and read the land, whether it's private land and you're manipulating food sources, or identifying wind direction and things like that, or it's going into a place where you've never been before and being able to scout the land out and see and use it to your advantage. That seems to be a lost art. With I think we all talk about getting the youth involved and getting that next generation hunter to embrace. Like I said, I've tasted this. Why once you had steak, you don't want to go back to eating hot dogs, right? So you want to share that, but teaching that skill set is something that it takes time to do, and you almost need to be mentored, and that's lacking nowadays.
I definitely think it's a challenge, but you said it earlier, Ron. You got to be intentional, and like I have not been intentional with my kids and getting them involved as much as I think I should be. Now that said, my kids are 3 and 5, so I've got some time. I got to remember, not every kid wants to go the minute they're walking and talking, but they're showing interest, and I think it just comes to being intentional in the house.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, dude, I got a mess of kids too, and I got a 4-year-old, and I got one that's getting ready to turn 16. And I
How many
told
kids
Ron
do you have?
5. I have 5.
Do you not have TV at your house?
Well, I have 2 boys. I got 2 teenage sons. I have twin 10-year-old girls, and
Very
then
cool.
I have a COVID surprise.
COVID
So
surprise. Okay.
my 4-year-old buddy. But I was telling Ron last year, got into waterfowl, and it's a hot topic now with migrations and stuff changing. But we just didn't have a good year last year, and I had said that a couple times. But my sons were like, "This was awesome! Like just coming out and hanging out." And you have kids, and I'm not trying to tell you anything you probably don't know, but like the littlest things, mean the biggest things to them. I mean, they just talk about going to Turkey Hill or Chick-fil-A for breakfast, and having fun, laughing. And I'm kind of going through the same thing. The reason I bought the fly rod, I've been watching the Outdoor Boys with my sons,
Mm.
and it makes me feel like, man, I don't do anything with them. This guy's out here, crossing the country and taking them into Alaska and stuff. But you're doing enough, man. I can tell just from the pictures and looking at your Facebook. I'm not trying to be creepy when I say that, but you
Oh,
know,
thanks. We try.
yeah, So, but let's piggyback off that stuff. Kind of getting into what you're into, for whitetails and stuff. What's your go-to approach? What are you looking for whitetails when you find a piece of property, or you manage a piece of property, or you just stumble upon something? What's your go-to for that?
Well, I'm I like diversity in any way, shape, and form. I've kind of taken this approach with good hunters. Not that I'm claiming I'm a great hunter. I'm just saying I've noticed the people that are good, and I try to piggyback off of. I think there's two different types of deer hunters. There's a deer hunter that like is just fascinated with animal behavior, and they want to follow every little nuance and sign and follow, read they read sign to a detail I can't even understand. So I either think they're loony, or they're just that good at reading animal behavior and applying it to their hunting. And then the other half is the people who they just can read the woods from a habitat holistic perspective. They can look at I was in the woods one time with somebody that like I'm very like habitat or edge oriented. So like, okay, just to be crude, like you have, terrain creates an edge, and then hardwood deciduous versus hardwood clear cut meeting to, a hemlock grove, and then there's a line of laurel. Like you got a whole bunch of edge, and like I follow that stuff, and I'm very habitat plant oriented. And I was with somebody who I was scouting with, and I'm talking about this plant and that plant and what this means to me. And there's like, he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But we got to this one point, and he was like, this makes sense why I would sit here. And he gave me all these reasons, and I thought, I didn't see any of that, but this is what I saw, and this is why I'd be at the same spot. So
perspective, matters.
Yeah. So for me, I guess I would say I like to look for diversity as far as habitat, but just as quickly as that, I really hate being bothered by other people. I mean, I had a property I think 3 years ago, I shot a really nice buck on, and there was like nobody was there. Nobody was bothering with it. But after I shot the buck, there was some timbering that went on that property. Well, the other people that knew about this property, they had cameras after it was timbered and everything else. I didn't even hunt it after that. This year, I finally think it was starting to turn around. I still didn't hunt it. I'm going to go back to looking at it because I think it's finally low enough in pressure. I'm hoping that it's going to be right. So it's a balancing act, but that's what I really like to look for.
Okay, right on. You're trying to talk in my language a little bit. Before I got into what I do now, I managed a garden center, and I did like landscape consultation. So you some of those terms you were saying was like flooding my memories back with different things. So we can talk about some of that stuff off the air.
Yeah. Well, whenever so one thing that we like to do, especially when it's summertime, it's off season or whatever, like my wife and I, we like to go camping. She likes to hike. We got the 2 dogs, and we just like to get outdoors, right? So we'll go up in the mountain, and we'll start hiking trails and just get outside. And it's good for the dogs because they get to run some steam off of them and that sort of thing. But I'll see where, if we're walking public land or anything like that, and somebody's got something set up, whether it's a trail camera or whether they got a stand set up, or, I'll see those things. And you're right, it does make sense. When you see where somebody else would set up, you can look at that and say, all right, I agree, or maybe not, but understanding that it's coming from a different mindset, and we all have different reasons for why we set up where we do. Quick story, I guess, opening day of archery this year, I didn't really have a spot local. I didn't go up to where our cabin is, and I just went out into some public land. Didn't put a whole lot of thought into, where I was going. I was going to ground hunt, and but like I said, we hike all the time, through the summer. So I had an idea in my mind of I'm just going to go set up in this little bluff, where there's kind of a saddle in the mountain. And I figured chances are, because of that saddle, just because of the terrain, I'm going to run into somebody. But I got in there early enough. There wasn't anybody there, but sure enough, 8:30, 9:00 in the morning, you got other hunters walking through that area because it makes sense to be a travel corridor. So, I guess I'm just agreeing with what you're saying, because I'll take walks and I'll see trail cameras set up, and it makes sense in those areas where they might be. But how we get to that conclusion might be from 2 different paths.
We all have different experiences that lead us to think the way we think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't prefer public or private one way or the other. I just like hunting deer. We're in this day and age now where everybody's like, you shoot a buck and the first thing he asks is, "Did you shoot that on public?" Like, I almost, what does it matter? Who freaking cares what piece of land it was on? The deer didn't know that there was a posted sign there. It's a piece of land and you're shooting a deer. I get fired up about that. But at the same time, people want to badmouth hunting on private land, but there's something to be said about having the privilege to hunt private and have interactions with deer that you get to learn from them. Because no matter the quarry you're after, like, you need to have reps. You need to have reps and experience that. And I got to hunt good pieces of private land and screw up a lot to learn what to do and what not to do when I go other places. And it's allowed me to be more successful. Can you get there hunting public land only? You absolutely can. In fact, I would argue that those trained assassins, as I like to call them, that go out and just do it on public land, they learn stuff that way. That's bad. That's bad news for the critters. There's a lot of people, I think, in this day and age that want to make this a competition and go this, "Oh, I'm only public land. I'm only public land." There's a lot of people I've hunted with. They don't see that many deer, and the one opportunity that they get, man, they about crap their pants when that opportunity unfolds because they don't have reps. They don't have that experience. So, I mean, it was a good experience, but what are you trying to prove? Are you trying to prove something to yourself or to other people?
That's a great point, because everybody, especially with social media, everybody wants to, the size of the deer. One thing we like to say is hunt your hunt. I don't care if you want to hunt with a crossbow. I don't care if you want to hunt with a recurve. How traditional do you want to get? You hunt your hunt. And if you're satisfied with that deer, your trophy looks different than my trophy. And for me, I'm competing against myself when I go out. I just want to go out and immerse myself in nature. And if I don't see a thing, it's still been a good day.
Yeah. Well, it's hard too. My family owns. We're fortunate enough. I don't like to say the word blessed. That's just a pet peeve of mine. But we're fortunate enough that my family owns a 120 acres in Maryland that we hunt on. But it might as well parts of it might be as well be public because all the neighbors hunt the edges of it.
Yeah.
And there's guys, and they're nice. I met them this year, and they were very nice. But there's guys that have tree stands that are 70 yards, 75 yards away from mine. That's been there for, there's been a tree stand in that tree of some sort for the last 30 years, whether it was a box stand or, whatever it is now. So it's hard, especially where I grew up hunting. The difference in Maryland is you can kill a billion deer,
right?
And so there's guys that hold out when they're bow hunting and they're going to shoot the big target deer, and when rifle season comes around, it's fill the truck, And so it's hard no matter where you go, And I've waterfowl hunted on public land, and that reward is cool when you kill the birds or whatever like that come in that have been shot at a million times, and you can hear them coming because every blind down the shoreline's calling at them, So it's rewarding, but like Ron said, hunt your hunt and whatever helps you. And hunting in general, that's just it's a spitting contest, for lack of a better word. And
sure,
who's got the biggest bow, who shoots the biggest arrows, right?
Or most of us it's a male dominated thing, right? And anytime you put male into the same, right, there's ego. Exactly.
Yeah.
But you got to learn to tame it. And I think as you mature as a person, some of us never do. I'm still in the process. You just learn how to where that's worth applying and where it's not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. When did let me throw a question out here. We talk about whitetail hunting, but I know you said you like to hunt bear. I know we got a good black bear population in the state. What did you get started like right out the gate when you were 12, or is that something that you picked up later on in your journey?
Man, I could talk forever in that. So you gotta tame the beast when you start telling those stories. But
yeah,
I started when I was 12. So the cabin that we go to, it's not my camp per se, family wise, but it's friends, and they've basically allowed me to treat it like my own. I mean, for years I was inviting people there to continue running this bear hunt. But anyway, rifle bear season is always, weekend before Thanksgiving. We'd go up as a group, we made drives, and that's how we bear hunted my whole life up until the last few years. I was fortunate enough when I was 13 years old, I shot one. So the first year when I was 12, I sat with my dad and got my taste of it. And then the second year, I remember driving up to camp the night before, and he's like, "So do you want to sit with me again this year, or do you want to sit on your own?" And I was ready to sit on my own when I was 9, and you couldn't even carry a gun in Pennsylvania when you were 9.
Right.
But I was like, "Yeah, I'll sit by myself, even though that's a giant no-no." So would you know it, the first day that I go out and sit, like the last drive of the day, I had a bear come 15 yards to me through the laurel and shot it and dropped it. And I was beside myself, hysterical. Really cool. It was funny because I was telling the story at the check station, and the guy that was doing the checking, he looked at my dad like this. He pointed at him and he goes like this, and waited until the guy's doing the bear checking, like they pull the tooth and stuff. They were telling, he waited till they walked away, and he whispers to my dad. He goes, "You better watch who he tells this story to." He goes, "Because just from what I'm gathering, it sounded like he was sitting by himself." He goes, "And I don't want to have to pull my badge out."
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was my first taste to it. Always went bear hunting after that. But at first it was like, once you shot one, it was like, hey, check that box off. Some people, shoot one in their life in Pennsylvania, they're done. I was lucky. I shot another one year in, when I was in college. We had finished doing drives, and ever since I shot my first one, I was a driver trying to chase a bear to somebody else. And one time we were sitting in a hollow. We just finished 2 drives, and we're waiting for the standers to wrap around to do this next drive. So we're just sitting in the hollow, like it was my cousin and one other guy in camp. We're like throwing snacks at each other, being knuckleheads. And would you know it, somebody chases a bear to us. And we were back and forth like, oh, who's going to shoot it? Who's going to shoot it? And I ended up being the one that shot it. That was my second one. So like, I went for a stage in my life where it was just, you went to camp, you went bear hunting, and it wasn't a big deal. I also, like somewhere along the line, I always wanted to shoot one with a bow. I just never really pursued it. 21, I had an opportunity. I was getting set in my stand at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was November when we had the overlap archery bear, archery deer.
That's the best.
I was getting set in my stand, and I had a bear come into me. It would have came probably 15 yards, but it stopped about 25 yards, and my bow was on the ground. I was new to saddle hunting. I was trying to figure out this platform business. Chased this bear. And that haunted me so bad. I thought, here was my opportunity to shoot a bear at my camp with my bow, and I blew it. And ever since then, it lit a fire under me. So from then on, I've been trying to learn how to bear hunt and not just go with a group, chase one, and shoot one. I've been trying to learn the animal and hunt it. So that's my long-winded answer of bear hunting.
No, that's great. That's great. I was thinking, like, when you start when you're young and you have any type of success, I think that's what gets us hooked. Whether you're taking a kid fishing or, you're taking them small game hunting or whatever. If they're not just sitting there all day being cold, but they're getting some success and there's
Sure.
stories to tell, that's what gets us involved. It gets it in your blood where you want to come back for more.
Yeah. You said a key word for me, check station, man. And, when I was a kid growing up in Maryland, you had to check every one of your deer in. And that was like the coolest part. Like you go there and there was guys that were, I'm sure they were, but they basically tailgating, smoking and joking. And you might see your dad's cousins or these guys, and you're coming in here with I remember 13 years old, I killed a little doe, and those guys treated me like I just won the Super Bowl, high fiving. And then where we could actually check ours in was also a taxidermy shop. So then you're going in there and you're looking at all the stuff and checking in. And I remember my grandfather, who's passed away, he's been, gone for a couple of years. He would tell me stories as a kid. He'd go, now don't repeat any of these stories I told you about these deer I got. Okay. And, but just, people don't understand how cool that was. My little brother that comes on here with us, like that was like the coolest part after you got the deer and celebrated with your family, whoever was taking it on there and dropping the tailgate. I just have these vivid memories of like 2-tone Ford F-150s with tailgates dropped and guys on the back with coffee, and it was just cool, man.
It was
It's part of growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a simpler time. It's part of growing up, and as a young man or a young woman, you feel like you're included. When you get to sit there and you're telling the story. It's funny how both you guys mentioned You know, you got to watch how you tell that story. You watch who you tell that story to and stuff. Now, my older brother mentored me a lot growing up because we got a significant age difference in us. So, you know, I hunted with my dad, still do, but you know, my older brother taught me a lot of stuff. But he really preached. He's like, you know, you got to know who you talk to. You need to know who your audience is. You know, he tipped me off into that stuff almost to the point of uh, overboard, you know. But when I told him, now certainly I'm much older when we started the podcast. When I told him, hey, we're gonna start posting pictures online, and we're gonna start telling stories online, that sort of stuff. He's like, you got to be careful what stories you tell. You know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
goes with the territory.
I sent Ron a picture. I think I sent it to you yesterday again. There's a kid that I was training at my job, 20 years old. His family just has prime, I mean, just deer hunting property. And it's just him and his dad and his brother. And it's hundreds of acres. Nobody else hunts these places. And he killed, I think it was a 184-inch buck on this
Mm.
thing. Never saw it before. So he was actually famous before I met this kid. Everyone's like, "Oh, this kid killed this deer," you know. So I'm like, "Tell me about this deer." He goes, "No." I said, "Listen, I've already seen the picture. Like, I know where you were at." So then he opened up a little bit, but it's funny how, you know, just people guarded with that. Uh, there's no in between with it. You're either best friends and you're high fiving and telling the story. You're like, "Nah, I'm good. F off," basically, right? You know.
And that's the difference between, you know, whitetail hunting and like you said, waterfowl hunting, Chris.
Absolutely.
You know, guys that want to go hunt birds and stuff, it's hanging out. It's, you know, come along, come, I'll share my spot with you. You know, let's
Yeah.
see if we can get them to come into us. Whitetail hunting's more of a solitude sport, for lack of maybe a better descriptive word on that.
100%.
So,
Absolutely.
so Mitchell, how long have you been doing the podcast?
2021 in May. I'll be 5 years this year.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think how
Yeah.
fast time goes.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you said about is, you know, the people that you meet. And I know you've had some pretty interesting, you know, guests come on your show and that sort of thing. Any standout, you know, interviews that you've been able to do? Um, I know I wouldn't say favorite guests, but you know, sometimes the shows go great and you just hit it off with people. And like you say, an hour flies by, and next thing you know, other people, it's like trying to get the conversation rolling.
Oh yeah. No, I've had some really cool experiences with that. I mean, a couple to stand out. When I was growing up, you know, there was two shows that I would watch a lot. One was Midwest Whitetail. That was the one a lot of people watched, and then the other one was Growing Deer with Dr. Grant Woods, and I gravitated towards that one
Mm-hmm.
because it was wildlife biology. In fact, the reason I went to college was twofold. Number one, my parents said I had to. Number two, it was biology. I thought I was gonna just do something like Grant because it just made sense. So I had the opportunity to have him on my podcast and him be a guest. And I hate singling guests out. I mean, I've done a lot of episodes, I've met a lot of people, and I hate singling people out. But I tell you what, that one was special for me just because it was somebody I've looked up to in so many ways, and then to be able to interview him was really cool. I got to interview a cool one was Larry Weishuhn. Larry came to my church and spoke, and I got to have an awesome opportunity where I sat with Larry for 45 minutes at my church and just chat. And
Mhm.
he said I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. So I had Larry Weishuhn. That was a cool one. And I've had a lot of other really cool people. And then as far as like meeting people, man, I've met a lot of cool people. I don't know, for some reason, one person that has come to my mind that I've hit it off with is, he's been I've met him through YouTube. It was Jason Go. He's on Final Stand. You know, all those guys from Final Stand have really cool. I mean, Jerry and Tim and, Crizzy. I've got to have almost all those guys on my show, and Jason's one I've hit it off with and been, fun. So that's a few examples. And like I said, I'm singling those people out because for some reason they're in my mind right now. There is a host of so many others that I've just valued meeting and getting to know and, hunting with and everything else.
Yeah, we just had Jer on last week. Actually, we were talking with him and laughing, and he's semi-local to us and a good dude. And
Mm-hmm.
the Final Stand guys are awesome. So those guys put some put some work in for some animals. So
They
They
get
do.
after it. They get after
yeah,
it.
I'll
That's
have
the
to get. Go ahead,
I
Ron.
was just gonna say that's the cool thing about like talking with local guys, because we do bleed over, from one group to the next, and you do this long enough, you're gonna come across the same folks or circle around and connect with one
Yeah.
another.
Absolutely.
Do you know about the Woodsman? Have you ever done anything with them or seen any of that program at all?
I have not.
So it's a hunting show. You would know the guy. His name is Jeff Danker. You would probably see the
Hmm.
show. Christian
Yeah.
guy does like a testimony thing at the end of every episode. Well, I'll get more into this after we go off air. But my daughter had a bad accident a couple years ago, and because I work in law enforcement, people I never met reached out to me, cops and different people from all over the country. And a friend of a friend from New York State, he's a New York State trooper, reached out to me, and we just hit it off. We just became like no homo, like pen pals. Like we just talk on Facebook all the time. I've never physically met him, but we sent each other videos and did all this stuff. And he is a big time whitetail guy. He's hooked up with this group called the Woodsman, and they do like events where you go out and have like this camp where they do like a men's ministry type stuff, and you're
Mm.
eating and they're shooting you. And it is like a pro staff where you're going to pitch some of their products and stuff.
Sure.
But then you're featured on their shows.
That's
And
really cool.
it's a really cool opportunity. I have to get you in touch with that guy because he's got some cool stuff, and he's got some really cool uh, food plant plot stuff that he gets through that program and stuff. And
Very cool.
they're really into it. So when we jump off here, remind me to tell you about him. He's cool. That's
Absolutely.
Nate the Woodsman. So you get a cool
Okay.
nickname when you're in that tribe. So
Nice.
Yeah, it's
where we
it.
at, Ron?
Yeah, we get to meet a lot of cool people doing this, and this is why I like to try to have conversation before we come onto a show and we get into telling stories and that sort of thing. But once you bring people on and you connect like this, it's like the door's open to always come back. And
Right.
that's what we say. I start the show off by saying, "Hey, hunting family." That's kind of like one of the things that I do, and I really mean that. Like people that want to be engaged are welcome to be engaged, and it's once you're on, once you're in, you can't get out unless you don't want to be. It's entirely up to you. But
One of my favorite things that we just started doing is we just shoot a text out to random guys, random content people, random podcasters. Hey, we're going to do an episode. We're just going to talk about random topics for deer hunting, and these guys go back and forth and relate stories. And I know that guy too, or I hunted here. So it's a lot of fun connecting that and cross pollinating, as me and Ron like to say with that. So
one of the things we did once, we got, because we got a pretty good group chat with a bunch of guys going, Mitchell, and you can get some pretty good when we're talking about perspectives. When that group chat gets big enough, you got different perspectives on different things. And even though we say hunt your hunt, not everybody feels that way, right?
yeah, we started a minor civil war over deer drives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do well. I'm not gonna lie. I do love conversing with people. When I started the podcast, I was thinking, okay, well, how am I going to network with people and guests and stuff? And people were talking about Facebook groups, and I didn't really know anything about them. So I thought, well, there's all these hunting Pennsylvania groups and this and that. And after a while, I started looking. I was like, man, this is just an excuse for people to badmouth, ego, talk about this. And it's like, if you're going to flaunt your opinions in that way, I don't care. And then I say that because I'm opinionated too, and I got to watch my tongue. And I don't do well in those situations because then I just get pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, we've vetted these guys pretty good. It's a really cool group of dudes.
Yeah, pretty tight knit group. But
Nice.
some of the guys are pro driving, and some of the guys are not. But that's the thing. Like some guys only hunt or they're familiar with flat land, and other guys like me. I grew up hunting hill country. So you could you could shoot, and it's not going to go for 2 miles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got two of these guys that are in it that are one of them I'm really good friends with from Eastern Maryland. They pretty much primarily deer hunt public land, and they scout and they're putting the work in, and they can tell you bedding areas to food areas. They're finding these things sheds and we're talking about deer drives, and they were like, F that, because that's the only places they're going. And if they've staked it out all year and some dude walks through there,
Just pushes up, pressure pushes
thing,
deer.
So it's just so ingrained in us, even where I grew up. We did deer drives. My brother is famous. He cannot sit still. At 8:30 in the morning, if he hasn't seen deer, he's going to get down and try to push deer to somebody, So, but we like giving each other a hard time about it too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I get it from both perspectives because I do both. I mean, I bow hunt, solo hunt. I've done a lot of that, and I've also host drives. I mean, I have them at my camp, and I've been doing it my whole life. And I try to be as well rounded as I possibly can with it. But I mean, I see it from both angles.
Yeah, that's the key. I would say, like, whenever I first started hunting, I couldn't sit for very long. Like, I got cold. I didn't have much meat on my bones. It's not the same today, as it was when I was 12. But I'd get cold real quick, and similar to Chris's brother, I'd want to get up and move and stalk hunt, and
He's
or I
that
just
guy, though. We actually have a thing, Mitchell, called unconventional hunting that I started years ago because he'll do everything, mostly him, that you're not supposed to do. He's the guy that's in the tree smoking a cigarette, and here comes, a deer we've never seen on the property. It pops out. It's 140-inch, 18-inch tall whitetail. No one's ever seen it. He's going to pop it with his bow at 10 yards. That's him. Yeah. And I'll sit there all day in my camo, not move, not open my coffee, and you don't see anything. But
It happens. That's part
it's
of
just
hunting.
funny like that. So, we're kind of getting to the end here. Let's get into your bread and butter here. Give me your top food plot advice. If you can wrap that up, what's your best advice for that, Mitchell, for people out
My
here listening?
goodness. My top food plot advice is don't fail at the basics. If you worry about the ice cream stuff, the stuff that's fancy, you're probably not going to do well. So I'll give you an example. I've been fortunate enough to walk some food plots and help people in that regard. But I see this in farming all the time. We get so hung up on, this micronutrient is going to allow this, nutrient transfer to develop, maximum antler growth and milk production. And people will stand there in a field and tell me about all this. And I'll say, okay, well, do you know that when you made this food plot, you made it when they logged and there was a skidder that opened this food plot up. And oh, by the way, it was really, really wet. And the ground is so tight and compacted that you've got no oxygen or porosity for roots to grow into the soil and actually make something. I have another one that's a common one with food plots is, so that's compaction. That's a simple thing. It's just the physical characteristic of the soil. Don't miss the simplicity things. Second one, sunlight. There's time, like, people will make this food plot. I don't understand. It's got grass in it. It's not really growing that well. Most of the time, they plant the food plot or they get it prepped when there's no leaves on the trees, right? Early spring, and they're doing this food plot. And I come back in June, and I look above, like, there's no sunshine getting to the forest floor because your entire food plot is surrounded by mature oak trees or poplar trees or whatever, and you've got major 100-year-old trees out competing for the most important resource, and that's sunlight, which develops chlorophyll, creates energy for the plants to actually grow. So you need all the simple things. You need sunlight, you need oxygen, you need water. And then here's the other thing. Don't go throwing all kinds of fertilizer, 10, 10, 10, and triple 19. And don't do that until you get a proper pH. People don't realize with a pH, and this is going to categorize into my simple stuff, is when you get under a 6.0 pH, that it's a logarithmic scale. So it's not like, every point is, just that different, right? So if 7 is neutral, 6 is, I think, 10 times more acidic than 7, and then a 5 would be 100 times more acidic than 7. So that logarithmic scale gets worse and worse. The more that pH is reduced and acidic, it just eats away at roots like crazy. And all the fertilizer in the world isn't going to exchange in the soil colloid to your plants. So make sure you address limestone appropriately. That's a simple thing. You can probably live off the land with one implement with the soils we have in Pennsylvania, and that's limestone. If you can do that, and you can get stuff to grow. There's other things. There's other nuances to that, but people love to focus on what seed blend, how are you planting it, when are you planting it, are you using herbicide? Oh, you should never use herbicide. Herbicides are bad. Pardon my French. I get pissed off about that because I think it's bullshit. I mean, it's just how I feel in a lot of cases. Is there some truth to it? Yes, but 80% of food plotters don't even know what they're talking about when they get into that. If we're in this world of information that everybody's an expert, and I'm guilty of it too, right? I mean, I get that way too, and I've put my foot in my mouth many times over certain topics, and that's why if I don't know something, I try not to talk about it. But I feel pretty confident that I can make a food plot recommendation just because I work in agriculture. So I just get frustrated when people want to negatively talk about food plots or focus on something that just doesn't matter for making a food plot. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I get a little bit excited.
I knew you were into it. It's funny because, I mentioned I used to manage a garden center, and we used to call them weekend warriors. These guys that would watch HGTV, they'd get a magazine, and this is kind of, the internet was around obviously, but they'd read a paragraph from an online thing. They'd read a headline of an online article, and they're experts. I remember these guys coming in all the time, and they were telling me, I need this, this, and this, and I want this. And I said, well, you're talking about stuff that grows in California, and we're in this, zone here. It's not going to work, and you could just tell they had these, we called them chameleon term of the month. There was these terms that they would just say all the time. And I know they heard it on HGTV. I need this for this soil conditioner. I need this pre-emergent, and I need this for this.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Well, it's something to say. It's something to say whenever you've done it and you've had success, and that's why, like, talking to old timers that have been around and have done it for 50 years, they're gonna know those nuancy things that work, but they're not overlooking the basics, like you're saying, Mitchell. You know what I mean? They're not gonna be super hyper focused on the seed blend if the the soil's not aerated enough or tilled enough that it's gonna grow. Been there, done that, you can speak from experience, and a lot of experiences, I'll speak for myself. I've learned a lot of stuff by doing stuff the wrong way.
Well, absolutely.
Sometimes that's life's best teacher.
Oh yeah.
I love, even if it's something that I might think I know a lot about, I love asking someone else's perspective.
Well,
what do you think about
There's
this?
no better way to learn than you made the mistake and I just didn't do it and I learned from you.
Yeah. or even just, I've never thought about doing it this way.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's 100%. I just love it. And, my way of thinking is so different from you Pennsylvania boys,
Well, that's why we like hanging out, Chris.
I can throw piles of corn out where I live,
Yeah.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
But then, you love waterfowl hunting, and don't get me wrong, I love waterfowl hunting too. It's fun, but there's no way that I would want to skip deer hunting if I don't have my buck tag filled to go, whoopee, I shot a bird.
Yeah. Listen. All right. We've had enough of this podcast. Mitchell's gone for now.
He just burned his bridge with Chris.
No, it's, I love it for the opposite of that. And we'll, that's subjects for a different day, but everybody likes what they like. My brother's the same way. If he'll save all his time to go duck hunting when it's cold this time of year. He wants to bow hunt and be in the tree stand, and he's not coming out. Ron came out with me after he killed his deer this year. Hey, I'll come out with you. I got time already. I got some meat in the freezer.
I want to hang out, man. I mean, I'm all about it. And like you say, nature is our playground, but I don't know. Like, I want to have meat in my freezer too.
Yeah. I got back into deer hunting this year a little bit more. And it was the first time in a long time that I sat there and I just enjoyed being in the tree stands.
I thought you were going to give the old, I used to really not like deer hunting that much, but I thought I'd try it. And after doing it for a season, I remembered that, it still kind of sucks.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was just, I've said this a bunch of times here. It's like a broken record, but my kids are at the age where I'm getting them into it, and I focus on getting them success and helping them.
Good.
And I had a couple chances this year to just, my wife was like, go, you just go. And it's like, okay. And I sat there and just the cold air. I got so excited. I told Ron, I took my phone and a bottle of water and my gun. I didn't take like my sight or my binoculars or optics. I didn't take any calls. I didn't even have a jacket. I had a sweatshirt. I was so excited.
You got to
And
be okay with just having time with just you and your own thoughts.
yeah,
No doubt.
so
Where can folks find you?
Probably the same places you're going to find any other podcast stuff. Pennsylvania Woodsman. You can, the whole Instagram, Facebook thing, it's all one word. Find podcast, I guess all those places you look. So iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Those are the ones that come to mind. I'm on it's called the Sportsman's Empire Podcast Network. So that's, that's the network it's on. And I always tell people, if you ever want to reach out to me, the best way to reach out to me, aside from messaging, is just email me, pawoodsmanpodcast@gmail.com. Guys, thanks for including me. This was fun.
Yeah.
It was great to meet you.
Thanks for coming on, dude. That was a good time.
Yeah. You're welcome back anytime, brother. I'd say any parting words that you would want to leave a new hunter or somebody wanting to get into the outdoors. Any words of wisdom as we end the show?
Give the glory to Jesus and just run your own race.
Come on. I'll give you an amen to that one. All right, folks. That's the Tracks and Tackle podcast for us this evening. I'm going to always sign off reminding you that I said it once or twice today. Nature's our playground. Get outdoors and always remember to stay wild. See you next time.